1720, the year the world lost its mind. The image of paper money fluttering through the air like autumn leaves. The sound of shouting crowds in the streets of Paris and London. This wasn't a celebration. It was the sound of a world realizing that wealth could vanish as quickly as it was created. By the early 18th century, the success of the Dutch VOC had sent a shockwave through Europe. The secret was out. You didn't need to own land, and you didn't need to be born into royalty to be rich. You just needed a piece of paper. This realization sparked a fever, a collective madness that gripped the continent. For the first time, people truly believed that money could breed money effortlessly while they slept. The epicenter of this chaos was split between two cities, London and Paris. In London, it was the South Sea Company. They promised exclusive rights to trade in the riches of South America. In Paris, it was the Mississippi Company, led by a Scottish gambler turned economist named John Law. Suddenly, the stock market wasn't just for merchants anymore. It was a social contagion. Counts and dukes rubbed shoulders with chimney sweeps and coachmen, all of them desperate to get their hands on these miracle certificates. The prices of these shares didn't just rise, they defied gravity. In London, South Sea stock went from £128 in January to £1,000 in August. People were getting rich on paper in a matter of days. The descent into the black hole. But as the summer of 1720 heated up, the foundation began to crack. Behind the grand promises, there was nothing. The South Sea Company had almost no actual trade. The Mississippi Company was printing paper money faster than the French economy could support. What followed was the birth of the financial black hole. When a few smart investors began to sell and take their profits, the faith that held the market together shattered. Panic spread like a wildfire. In Paris, the crowds grew so violent in their rush to sell that people were crushed to death in the streets. In London, the South Sea bubble popped with a deafening silence that left thousands, including Sir Isaac Newton, utterly bankrupt. The Mississippi bubble, the wizard of paper wealth. While London was caught in the South Sea fever across the English Channel, France was facing a total economic collapse. The sun had set on King Louis XIV, leaving the country buried under a mountain of war debt. France was bankrupt, desperate, and looking for a miracle. That miracle arrived in the form of a man named John Law. Law was no ordinary banker. He was a tall, charismatic Scotsman, a brilliant mathematician, a professional gambler, and a convicted murderer who had escaped a London prison. But John Law had an idea that would change the world. He believed that gold and silver were outdated. He believed that the future of wealth wasn't metal, but credit and paper. In 1717, Law convinced the French regent to let him try a radical experiment. He founded the Banque Générale and the Mississippi Company. This company was granted a total monopoly over the French territory of Louisiana in North America, a vast, mysterious land that Law painted as a literal El Dorado. To fund the expansion, Law issued shares to the public. But he didn't just sell stocks. He used his marketing genius to orchestrate the first great hype campaign in history. He printed pamphlets describing mountains of gold and emeralds just waiting to be picked up in the Mississippi Delta. The French public went into a frenzy. In the narrow streets of Paris, the demand for Mississippi stock was so high that people sold their homes, their jewelry, and even their clothes just to buy a single share. In just 1 year, the price of a share rocketed from 500 livres to a staggering 10,000 livres. But there was a dark secret lurking beneath the hype. In reality, Louisiana was nothing but a mosquito-infested swamp. There was no gold. There were no emeralds. The company was a hollow shell. To keep the bubble from popping, Law committed a fatal economic sin.
To keep the bubble from
As the
popping,
Controller
Law
General of
committed a
Finances,
fatal economic
he had
sin.
the power to print money.
As Controller General
Whenever
of
the stock
Finances,
price
he had the
started
power
to
to print
dip, Law
money.
simply turned
Money
on the printing
became
presses.
so abundant
He
it
flooded the
lost
streets
its
with fresh
meaning.
paper banknotes,
When everything is
essentially
printed,
giving people
nothing
free
is
money
worth
to keep
anything.
buying more stock. For a moment, it worked. Everyone felt like a millionaire. But Law had created a monster, hyperinflation. While stock prices were at an all-time high, the price of bread and milk began to double and triple. The paper money in people's pockets was becoming worthless. By 1720, the mirage faded. Investors realized the gold wasn't coming, and they rushed to the bank to exchange their paper notes back for real gold. But there was no gold left. The wizard had run out of spells. John Law was forced to flee France in disguise, leaving behind a broken nation and a lesson that still haunts Wall Street. You can print money, but you cannot print value. The South Sea Bubble. When Britain almost went under, while France was falling under the spell of John Law across the English Channel, London was watching with a mix of envy and greed. The British didn't want to be left behind in the race for paper wealth. This led to the rise of the South Sea Company, a financial beast that would nearly swallow the British Empire whole. The man behind the curtain was John Blunt, a ruthless businessman with a simple but dangerous plan. He approached the British government with an offer they couldn't refuse. The South Sea Company would take over the entire British national debt. In exchange, the government would grant them a total monopoly on trade with South America, a land rumored to be overflowing with gold and silver. John Blunt didn't care about actual trade. He realized he didn't need to sell spices or gold. He just needed to sell hype. He used dirty marketing tactics, spreading fake rumors of incredible wealth, and bribing politicians with free shares to keep the laws in his favor. As the stock price began to climb, from £100 to £1,000 in just a few months, Londoners went into a state of South Sea madness. People were so desperate to buy in that they didn't even check if the company owned a single ship. The reality check. The South Sea Company became a giant vacuum, sucking all the capital out of the British economy. But since there was no real business behind it, the only way for the price to stay up was for new suckers to keep buying. When the money ran out, the bubble burst with a violence that shook the foundations of the nation. It wasn't just a financial loss. It was a total collapse of trust that led to suicides,
the bubble
bankruptcies,
burst,
and a law that banned
could
public
not
companies
protect
in
a
Britain
nation
for the
built
next
on
century.
paper.
Following the seismic shocks of 1720, the financial world seemed to collapse. In England and France, draconian laws were passed, effectively banning joint stock companies for nearly a century. People grew to fear stock certificates as if they were a deadly plague. Yet the flame of the market did not die out. It simply moved to seek a new land. In 1792, beneath the shade of a buttonwood tree on a small street in New York, 24 brokers signed a simple agreement to trade securities with one another. That street was named Wall Street. These pioneers had learned the hard lessons of Amsterdam, Paris, and London. They realized that a sustainable market could not be built on empty promises alone. It required rules, structure, and transparency.